With minicamp over and training camp right around the corner, these are the Cowboys players in the most danger of getting cut when the team heads to Oxnard. The fastest intro I've ever done. Let's get into it. You guys know here on the channel, I love to talk offensive players, and there are quite a few offensive players on this list. But let's start on the defensive side of the ball with linebacker Damone Clark, drafted in the 5th round in 2022 out of LSU. Coming out of the draft, Clark was a highly touted prospect, but there was something going on with his spine, with his neck, a pretty rare injury that caused him to fall to the 5th round. And when Dallas took him, because they like highly touted players, if they got injury concerns, personal concerns, they will take the risk just based on talent alone. And they did that with Clark, and it felt like a steal. A lot of people didn't think he'd be able to play in his rookie season, but he did end up getting to play towards the back half of the year, got back from the injury. But ever since then, that excitement of Clark potentially being a key piece for this defense, he just hasn't been that guy. In 2024, he had 16 solo tackles and half a sack. Under Zimmer, he really didn't get to play that much, and he started to kind of fall out of favor with Dan Quinn right before he left to go to the Commanders. And you look at Clark's numbers, I mean, they're impressive just on paper. He had over 100 tackles during the 2023 season, but then you look at the depth of those tackles, where he's bringing guys down, that kind of tells the full story. He's just a tick behind, a tick late in his processing, a step too slow sometimes. And I think that's a big reason that he's just slid down the depth chart with Dan Quinn. And then with Zimmer, we really didn't get to see him play at all until the linebacker room got so thin that they didn't really have any other choice. So far, though, through OTAs and minicamp, reports have said that he's been stepping up, playing well. He's still not starting over Kenneth Murray and Jack Sanborn, but he's been making plays with that second team unit. And I forgot to mention at the start of this video, I wanted to break it down by kind of telling you about the player a little bit and then give you some reasons why they make the team and then some reasons why that guy probably won't make the team and why they're on this list. Why Clark makes the team is because of Flus, a new defensive coordinator. It's not Zimmer. He gets a completely fresh start in a new scheme, and maybe that causes him to take a step forward. If there was a defensive coordinator out there that's a linebacker whisperer, really help guys develop, it would be Matt Eberflus. So there's some reasons for optimism there. And then really, the linebacker room just needs depth, at least until Overshown gets back. The numbers for Clark making this team are in his favor for now. So that brings up the discussion of why he won't make the team. He's going to be in competition with Buddy Johnson, who's been around for a while too in the NFL and with the Cowboys. And although I think Clark is better than Johnson, there's always a chance that he loses that battle in camp. And sure, I could see Clark making the 53, having a pretty good camp, beating out Buddy Johnson, but it's really not about making the team for him when the initial cuts happen. He's going to have to fight to stay on this team when Overshown does get back from his injury, because the numbers are going to get real slim when you start naming off guys that the Cowboys have invested in over the past season or two. You have Sanborn, who they just signed this past offseason. They traded for Kenneth Murray, who's going to be making $8 million this year. You have Leafau, a 3rd-round pick last year. Shamar James, they traded up for in the later rounds in 2025. And then, of course, Overshown would be back. That's 5 linebackers. Where does Clark fit in all of that? I don't really know. So I guess we're just going to have to wait and see how he looks in camp, how Eberflus has maybe helped him, what unit Clark's running with. And I have a feeling that they're going to want to see him in the preseason, and that might just end up being the determining factor. So I said we liked talking about offense here on the channel, and the rest of the guys on this list are offensive players, because the defense, honestly, to me, is kind of cut and dry when you start talking about veteran guys that have made the team in the past that could potentially get cut in 2025. I just think the defense is a little bit easier to read with that, and Clark was the only name that really stuck out for me. So let's talk about the running back room. We're going to hit on this position a little bit later in the video, but I wanted to start with Deuce Vaughn, who the Cowboys drafted in the 6th round of the 2023 draft out of Kansas State. And I feel like I have to say this for Deuce's sake, but that dude was a baller at K-State. Like the #1 featured back on that team, one of the most prolific running backs in college football. And if you don't believe me, go look at his numbers compared to Bijan Robinson's when Robinson was the 8th overall pick. I'm not saying that Deuce is that level of player in the NFL. Still, you don't rush for nearly 1,800 yards in college without some level of athleticism and vision and all of those things. Even if he is a bit smaller as a player, you just don't do that if you're not at football. And for Deuce, there's so much stacked against him this year. We're going to start with why he won't make the team. His NFL career up to this point has been an entirely different story. The numbers, the production have just been real bad. And we can argue about why that is. McCarthy calling the offense, the lack of opportunities, just an overall terrible run game. Like, all of those are valid arguments for why he hasn't really worked out in Dallas so far. And no pun intended, whenever I say this, I swear. But his height, it's kind of low-hanging fruit for me. Sure, you can put it on that. You could say that a 5'5" running back is not going to work in the NFL. It makes sense. I'm not going to argue with you on that. But I also feel like he never really got a chance to play like for real. Go back and look at his 40-odd-some carries in the NFL. I would argue that maybe, just maybe, 5 to 8 of those have actually mattered, where he's not running behind Brock Hoffman and TJ Bass and in the 4th quarter of a game that Dallas is either getting blown out in or blowing the other team out. But that's not what this video is about. We're just talking about why Deuce could potentially miss out on making this roster. I just don't see a way that it happens. You just look at what Dallas did in the draft. Jaden Blue is that shiftier, faster pass-catching back, a role that Deuce would kind of fit in when you look at his play style. And then you think about Deuce's ability as a gadget guy. I just made a video on Kevontae Turpin on why he fits that role perfectly and how Dallas could put him into the offense. So it's like, where does that leave Deuce? Oh, nowhere. I just can't find his fit on this team. The past couple of years, especially with the state of the running back room since he was drafted, over the past couple of years, especially with the state of the running back room since Deuce was drafted, I could look back and say, oh yeah, he fills that speed, smaller, gadget type player, the good change of pace back, even behind a guy like Tony Pollard. Like, it made sense. But now Turpin's expected to get an extended role. They're trying all these different guys in the backfield. Jaden Blue is going to be a part of this offense to some extent as a rookie. How much, we don't really know yet, but he's going to be a part of it. So that just doesn't leave a whole lot of room. Phil Maffa, Jaden Blue, Miles Sanders, Javonte Williams, Hunter Lipke, like, the numbers are just so slim. Now, there might be one thing that maybe potentially keeps him on this roster, and that's that he has some coaches that probably understand his skill set and ability the best of any in his NFL career up to this point. Mike McCarthy had no idea how to use Deuce. No idea. Not sure he knew how to use any player that was outside the norm at any position, but that's a topic for another day. Connor Riley from Kansas State, who was the offensive coordinator when Deuce was there, that's a guy that understands him as a player, what he can have success doing. That's the most obvious name for me. Maybe that's a guy that vouches for him in a real way. But you also have Brian Schottenheimer, who has been in the building over the past couple of years, watching these practices, seeing the personnel, seeing Deuce out on the field for all of these practices that we don't get to see. But maybe there's a way that Shoddy likes him more than we even. That's kind of the best I got for Deuce making this team in 2025. So let's head over to the wide receiver room and talk about Jalen Brooks, a late 7th round pick, 244th overall in the 2023 draft. As you're going to see, the Cowboys have invested pretty heavily in the wide receiver room, just not with top picks. They've drafted a lot of wide receivers, just not in the first round. Brooks was not a super productive player in college, but a big-bodied guy with some blocking ability. And when he transferred to South Carolina from a bunch of different smaller schools throughout his college career, he ended with just 785 yards and 2 touchdowns throughout his entire college career. No hate to Jalen Brooks. Everybody's different, but if that doesn't prove that the NFL is traits-based and then production, I don't know what does. There are guys out there that have had a whole lot more production that definitely didn't get drafted even in the 7th round. But good for Brooks. He's hung around with the Cowboys for a couple of years now, and in 2024, he played in 14 games. He caught 12 passes for 177 yards and scored his one and only NFL touchdown. So, why does he make the team? Number one, I would say familiarity with the front office, with some of the coaching staff, with the department. They know what he's capable of. They know what kind of player he is. And I think he can also do some things on special teams that the new coordinator there might like as well. If you just look at the wide receiver room as a whole, it's not like it's a super stacked group or anything. It's not like he's going to be competing with a former 2nd round pick. Like I said, Dallas has kind of gotten guys in the 6th round, the 7th round. He's not going to be going against somebody with a ton of investment. It's just kind of a logjam position right now with all of the younger guys that haven't quite developed yet or up to that point. And I do think that Brooks is like a training camp warrior too. Like, he always shows up in Oxnard, he makes plays, and sometimes that's enough to keep a guy on the roster. But then I go back and look at why he doesn't make this team. Number one is George Pickens. Adding Pickens to this wide receiver room, it completely sent us into an alternate reality. We went from Jalen Tolbert as the wide receiver 2 to Jalen Tolbert maybe being the wide receiver 4. At least for me, I would go Lamb, Pickens, Turpin, Tolbert. Like, everything went crazy. But I think adding Pickens gives Dallas the opportunity to maybe just roll with 5 wide receivers. But you look at them adding Pickens and what he adds to the offense as the big body on the outside, the guy that can run go routes, make big plays down the field, go up and high point the ball. That's kind of what Brooks's game is, to a much lesser extent, obviously. Just looking at it, I just wouldn't pencil in Brooks quite yet on this roster, just based on the sheer numbers that the Cowboys have at the position. There's a couple undrafted free agent guys that the new coaching staff might think that they can develop, and maybe Brooks just hasn't really developed in the way that some people in the front office had hoped. This is just, it's how the NFL works. The NFL constantly churns talent, especially at the back end of these rosters. You look at Brooks, he's stayed around. The Cowboys have given him time. And at this point, they might just think, oh, well, we know what kind of player he is. Maybe we can keep one of the younger guys and do it all over again. You know, give that player a shot for a year or two, and then just keep doing that until the end of time. That's just how it works. That might end up how it plays for Jalen Brooks. And that's exactly why I put Ryan Flournoy on this list as well. Speaking of guys that Dallas also drafted, this time in the 6th round in 2024, but someone that they might want to squeak on this roster. Someone they feel like can develop a little bit more and maybe develop to an even better player than they think Jalen Brooks can get to. Last year, as a rookie, in his rookie season, Flournoy had 10 catches for 102 yards. Nothing crazy. Got some opportunities late in the year when the season was lost. But I'm not going to harp on it for too long with Flournoy because we just went over it with Brooks. But the position is at a log jam. You can't keep 7 wide receivers on the 53-man roster, and all of these guys are just so close to each other that at the end of the day, you just got to pick one and roll with it. Right now, if they keep 6 wide receivers, I could easily see it being Brooks and Flournoy competing with each other for that last spot. And I look at them as players, and I think they're kind of the same guy, kind of the same special teams ability, the big body, big target. Flournoy probably has more play strength as far as go up and get it and muscle the defender. But all in all, they're kind of similar, right? They're going to be asked to do the same things. And that's why I could see Flournoy making this team. He has more recent draft investment. It would give him another year to develop with this new coaching staff. He's bigger and stronger than Brooks. And there's a chance that in camp, he takes a step forward and impresses all of us, which would be phenomenal. But I kind of group those guys together. Brooks, Flournoy, I think it's make or break for both of them. So in my opinion, that kind of ends the fun talk on this list. We're going to quickly go over two guys that we've talked about ad nauseum on the channel, but I felt like I couldn't make this video without mentioning Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. I promise, if this can be the last video that I talk about the running back room and veteran running backs maybe or maybe not making this team, I promise I will make it happen. This will be the last one. But just like Brooks and Flournoy, I think that Sanders and Williams are competing against each other. I don't think that they're going to keep both of those guys because they have Phil Maffa, a 7th-round pick that they maybe want to keep around. You have Jaden Blue. You have Hunter Lipke. Like, I just don't see the point in keeping two veteran backs that not really do the same things, but kind of stop Blue or Lipke or anyone else from getting reps. Like, you're better off, the Cowboys are better off just rolling with one of them. Right now, I think Sanders is in the lead. We've heard that he's had the most pop at minicamp, at OTAs, based on what you can learn from the running back position there. But for me, it's one over the other, and I think right now Sanders is ahead. He's also had a more impressive NFL career up to this point. So that's the list of guys: Damone Clark, Jalen Brooks, Ryan Flournoy, Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders. Which one of those are making the team? Which ones are not? You let me know down below in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I love you all, and I'll see you very, very soon.